Give folks just another second to join this room. I know that sometimes flipping from one Zoom to another can be hard. I'm also going to go ahead and ask, I see that Maria and Richard have joined us, if they want to turn on their cameras. I'll also just tell all of you, if you want to turn on your cameras, like if you want to stay not having them on, that's totally okay. Anonymity is wonderful. But if you want to see each other, please feel free to do that, because I miss all of you and being able to do this in person. I also think it's so important that I know if you're in the session, then you're committed to this work. And it's so important, right, that we're able to be in community with each other. So awesome. Well, for those of you who have pictures up or took off their turned on their camera for a little bit, it's really good to see you. We're gonna turn on a PowerPoint in just a minute. And then probably at the end of the PowerPoint, maybe during Q&A, Richard and Maria, we can turn it off just so people can see each other again if they want to be seen. Awesome. Also, I see a number of folks presented this morning who are in here, and y'all did such a great job. What a good lead up for this. Oops. Fantastic. Well, I am Catherine K. Cookmont. I serve as the Associate Vice President of Student Success. I also use she, her, hers pronouns, and I've been really lucky to get to work with Strategy 10, Closing the Completion Gap for Students of Color, for the past 2 years. I'll have my co-presenters introduce themselves as well, but before they do, I just want to let you know it is such an honor to get to work with them. They are doing such incredible work towards equity, towards support, and just if you don't know their names already, you should know them because they're all stars. And with that, I'll turn it over first to Richard.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Kat, for the intro. My name is Richard Diaz. I use he, they pronouns. I am the director of the Office of Orientation and Student Success.
Morning, folks. I'm Maria Martinez. I serve as the director of the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs. And thank you all for coming to our session today. We're excited to talk about closing the achievement gap for our students of color.
Something else I just want to say is while they are definitely all-stars and I get to see them working towards these ends every day, I know everyone who's joined this is an all-star. It means you're committed to doing this work. You're committed to trying to figure out where are the discrepancies. And I know that's something that Richard and Maria and I often talk about is it's like this love-hate relationship, right? It is like we are so privileged and honored to be able to do this work for our students. But man, it's so exhausting and it's so frustrating. And why can't we just figure out the magic spell to get this to work when we're investing so much time and energy? And so if you are feeling that love-hate relationship of loving our students and hating the systems that are causing us to continue to flounder in support of them, then you are in the right community right now. And in fact, we have been doing so much more than these couple of bullet points that you see on this slide to try and create racial equity and completion. We are doing things in so many areas that you got to see earlier and so many areas that we didn't have time to be able to share earlier or in this presentation. A couple of the things that we have focused on last year is disaggregating assessment data by race and ethnicity. And I really appreciated what Richard said in his earlier presentation with Michelle, is that the way even that we're looking at data might not be correct. I think it's really important to acknowledge that institutions of higher ed are often reflective of the US Census. The US Census is incredibly racist. It has been for its entire history. If you ever want to talk about that and learn about that history, or if you know more about it than me and want to educate me, I would love that because it determines how are we measuring equity? How are we also measuring people, which is such a touchy thing anyway. Our teams have lots of conversations and we're lucky to do it with some of our great partners in enrollment management, right? About how we have to be able to change how we identify people, not through a white lens, but be able to do it through an authentic lens of who they identify as. And when we look at things that are racialized, The reason that has happened is either because a white lens has decided to racialize people of color, right? Or else because people of color have realized, man, when I only rely on my ethnic identity, that doesn't create enough movement, right? Like I might be the only Nepalese American in this class, but man, there's 2 other Asian Americans here. And so for transformative power, maybe we exist under this racial identity to be able to move things forward. But the majority of our students or staff or faculty of color definitely have an ethnic identity that is incredibly important. And we're not measuring by that. And I really appreciated that was acknowledged earlier. Also, we have been able to create more marketing around some of the things that students might not know, which is the benefits of summer enrollment, right? Cheaper courses, maybe it fits in better with your schedule, or maybe just having more daylight hours means you can balance classwork with the other things going on in your life a little bit better. You also will get to hear a little bit later about our Bruin Scholars Program and how we're expanding that under Richard's area. And also we have focused on how we can individualize TRIO best practices to other programs. If you don't know what TRIO is, it's a US federal grant program that allows us to serve first generation and students from low income families. Not all of them, unfortunately, there are just some things there that keep us from being able to serve completely equitably through that. But it's something where we've learned a lot in terms of this longstanding program that you see at many institutions. Moving forward, some of the things we're continuing to roll out and build up is our care team. You'll also hear more details about that coming up. You see the Bruin Scholars here as well, again, because we're looking for a secondary expansion. We also have an emerging HSI and ANAPZ task forces. If you're not familiar with what those acronyms stand for, it's Hispanic Serving Institution and Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions. And we'll go a little bit more in detail about what that means for our college and what that means in terms of those designations. And then of course, our Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, led by Maria, is just doing incredible things on a daily basis. And you'll get to hear a little bit more in depth about what those things are. Before I turn it over to Richard to talk a little bit more about the care team and the Bruin Scholars Program, I think it's really important to acknowledge that we're not just looking to achieve one-to-one racial equity and completion. You can see on this slide, I've changed that to say, and in completion, care, and respect. Because all of us know students of color who are high performers, who are getting through our systems, who are graduating and doing incredible things. They are everywhere. Just because they are completing does not mean they are not experiencing bias or difficulty or things that their white counterparts are not experiencing. And I think it's important to differentiate that while of course we need the metric of who is completing, because it's a good way to measure our progress in terms of the care that we're giving. It also doesn't mean that because someone completes that they're going through SLCC and are being treated with respect or in ways that make them feel like they're a part of our community in a meaningful way. And with that, I will turn it over to Richard to talk a little bit more about our care team.
Thank you, Kat. So if you were at the plenary session earlier today, you probably heard a brief intro into this, and this is more of an extended introduction with some bells and whistles attached. But essentially, the care team is a newer effort created. We started meeting back in May of last year and have continued since. But it's a targeted effort designed to close the completion gap, at least support that effort through collaboration and data analytics. And if you can go to the next slide, Kat. If you're there, Kat, can you hear me? Oh, thank you. And so then when we're thinking about selection, that's the first step in thinking about who we're working with. And so what we did is rather than thinking about working with all students of color, which is a significant number for any office or body to kind of work with, we tapped into current tools that would help us prioritize who we're working with. One of those current tools that as a college we're adopting is My Success, which is a case management tool. My Success has a feature of analytics that we can potentially tap into to see how likely it is for a student to be with us and be retained over time. What they do is they use current data. So they use all the metrics that we currently have in Banner, things like GPA, current semester enrollment hours, They use time and term related metrics like major, age of the person entering the program. They use all this data that we collect on students and that we've been collecting on students for years now, right? To figure out historically, what is a student with this demographical data and inputs, what were the chances of succeeding? Where did they get stuck, right? And so once they run all of our students of color through the algorithm, they separate them into pods per se. And the pods are not perfect and they're not like frozen in time. So depending on what a student chooses, like if a student enrolls for one additional class or they dropped out of 2 classes and they only had 3, right? Their colors will change, but essentially those colors correspond to risk levels. And so you can see that, again, this has changed from when we first did the formula, but you can see that a good chunk of our students were initially coded in the green, which translates to having low risk, meaning that they're likely to come back a following semester. The blue group had some moderate risk level, meaning that they could not come back. And then we had a high risk group coded here in the red of the students that will potentially struggle the most in coming back to us the next semester. The scores are translated into numbers. We call those My Success scores. And as a team, as we started meeting as care team reps, we decided to tackle this moderate group, right? At least initially, tackle this moderate group who has shown, given some of the data that we've collected on them in Banner, that they may be at risk of not re-enrolling next semester. When you zoom in on students, right, you can potentially see the different reasons why a student might be placed in moderate risk. In this particular scenario, you can see that this one student, the reason why they have a 74 and therefore they're in that moderate level is because they have a really good GPA. So their GPA so far has been 3.79. Our last fall semester, they were doing 9 credits, which is that sweet spot, what we're seeing with our students historically in terms of showing that they can persist. And then they're entering the program at whatever program of study they were entering at an older age. So they were entering at 38. So maybe they had a more dedication or maybe more focus to be able to know that that was their career path. But the reason why they were in the green was the negative factors that you can see here. So some of those included things like it had been 13 years, almost 14 since she started college. So there was a big break in between. And so there might be some anxiety, right, around how we do that. She was also coded as out of state. And so we know that out of state students are paying more money, and that's a risk factor that will prevent them from being able to come back a semester later. Just because it's very expensive to pay out of state. And so one of our care team reps or anyone who's assigned to the student could potentially at a glance see this and not necessarily use this to then pass judgment on the student, but necessarily use this to be able to have conversations with students that are meaningful, to be able to say, hey, I noticed you're listed out of state. Is that accurate? And for some of our students, that's not accurate. Maybe they forgot an ID, maybe they lost their student ID, their driver's license, they don't have the documentation the state requires to be able to prove residency. And then right there and then, that's something that we can help them with resolve, right? Maybe they're thinking that because they've taken a break, they're feeling super anxious about all the changes they've had. Like think about college 13 years ago and think about college now. And I was in college 13 years ago, right? And the things that we're doing now are completely different. Like our use of Canvas, our online education pieces, like none of that existed necessarily when I was going to college. And so there's a huge anxiety that we can then talk to the student about to see how we can intervene just in time to be able to tell that student, let me help you and connect you to resources. One of those could very much be their faculty member, right? And encourage them to have conversations with their faculty about that anxiety piece. The other piece that Michelle kind of demonstrated the plenary session were kind of our just-in-time behavioral alerts, and not necessarily what they're doing every day, but what they're doing in Canvas. And, you know, for all the bad things the pandemic brought to our communities, the good thing that it did for our college is that it almost forced every faculty member to use Canvas as a teaching tool, as a method of instruction, and to manage their classes virtually or in a hybrid mode of sorts. And so because Canvas is a huge data warehouse, our data team was able to access Canvas to be able to create alerts for us. The alerts are not perfect, but they're a good start for us to start having, again, those meaningful conversations with students and being able to understand what our students needs are just in time and not a semester or two later. The two kind of algorithms that they created using Canvas data were an algorithm that's looking at general risky behavior that a student may engage in. That behavior includes things like a student who's not turning in assignments on a weekly basis. I'm sorry, a student who's getting low scores on assignments, right? You have quizzes, you have pretty much a lot of things that are graded on Canvas, and instructors keep records of that on Canvas. And so if a student is getting low scores in those assignments, they're engaging in behavior that potentially, if that proceeds over time, they're going to fail that course. And so the moment we start seeing that trend on our students that we're tracking over time in this dashboard, we can intervene right there to figure out why that student is not getting a high enough assignment grade compared to their peers to be able to then pass or do well in the class. And maybe that's a tutoring thing, right? Or maybe that could be I'm not getting the content. And then we can start with referrals to maybe the DRC, tutoring, other places that we know are resources that we've created to be able to build success for our students and mitigate some challenges they're facing. The second algorithm here is looking at page views. Most of our faculty are using modules, right? Where you have to click on the module to be able to see page views. If a student compared to their peers is not averaging enough page views of that content on Canvas, there's a likelihood they're not engaging with the content meaningfully. And so that person will get alerted, we'll be able to see it and we'll be able to say, hey, you haven't been logging into Canvas enough, or you've been logging in, but you haven't been engaging with the content. What's going on there, right? And maybe the faculty doesn't have any content there, so that might explain it. Or maybe the faculty does, but the student doesn't have access to the internet, at which point we can connect with Maria and library to make sure that student has a Wi-Fi thingy that they can have access to the internet at home. The other piece is we're looking at behavior that's abnormal. So if a student stopped going to class, meaning in some instances logging into Canvas altogether, right, we'll be able to see that, and we'll be able to see the exact point in time where a student just stopped logging in. And if we know that that class is an online class and the student just stopped going in, we know something happened. Maybe it was a car accident, maybe that student is sick, maybe a relative died, and we can essentially, hopefully, intervene in time to be able to connect the student to resources or appeals or processes the college has to be for exactly those reasons to be able to help that student be successful through that course. I mentioned this earlier, but the premise of the CARE team is that it's collaborative, right? Many of our offices are doing this work and we've been doing it in silos. I know TRIO, for example, does a great job at helping their students be successful, but they're limited. They're limited in terms of how many students they can serve because they're fully grant funded, right? And the grant has specific guidelines as to who they can serve, but they have some amazing things that they're doing, right? The Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, and Maria will talk about this later, has been doing some great things there too, right? But they're also limited in terms of who they can serve. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring all the offices that are currently case managing students, offices that are by their purpose, by their existence, exist to serve students and help them be successful. We're bringing them together. We're bringing them together multiple times a month to be able to discuss student challenges, to be able to figure out, you know, what are our students' challenges this semester? Like, are they is there a high number of students experiencing homelessness? Is there a high number of students who are struggling, you know, with COVID and how they make that work with their students? And if we're seeing all those themes in the different parts of the CARE team, right? And the students that we're connected with, then there's a chance that this is not just a TRIO problem or an ODMA problem, that this is a challenge that's pervasive throughout the institution, at which point we can use all the folks who are part of this team to advocate for resources, change, or be able to tell that story with a voice that hopefully echoes at a larger arena, at a larger metric, so that we can create and organize ourselves to meet the needs of the students that we're serving, given the resources that we have are not capable of doing that. And so that's the idea behind the collaborative piece of what we're doing. And again, we're still refining this process. It's new, but we're hopeful that it has energy to move us forward. The last two things that I'll talk about, and I'll just give a quick overview of this. No need to kind of process that because I know it's a lot of info at once, but essentially it's a flowchart of the work that we're doing. Once we identify the students who are in that moderate risk factor according to their MySuccess scores, right? We then layer them by seeing if those students are both first gen and students of color. Last fall, that gave us a number of about 1,000 plus students that we're working with. In the spring, that number stays about the same. We're working with about 1,300, I think, for the spring. From those, right, we see of those 1,300 students, how many of them are connected with current offices? Of those 1,300 students, maybe 10 of those are international students, right? Maybe 50 of those are TRIO students, maybe 60 of those are athletes, right? And the leads from those departments, we then tell them to make sure that they pay close attention to those 60 students, to those 10 students, right? Because we know that A, based on their history at their institution, they may struggle. And then B, we're monitoring their progress through Canvas and those dashboards that the data science created on a weekly basis to make sure that when they do struggle, or if we see signs of struggling, we can have those conversations that are meaningful. Of those 1,200 students, there's at least 600 who don't have necessarily a connection with an office. We call those care team students at large. And currently my office, the Orientation Student Success Office, is working with those students at large to make sure we find them connections and that someone's kind of following up with them and they're not falling through the cracks. Some of our interventions include communication. So we're communicating with them monthly, we're communicating with them as a group, but also communicating with them as individuals. We have success plans that we're creating on My Success. We also do progress or needs surveys, something that's also built on My Success. We follow closely the alerts and the to-dos that are raised by either faculty on My Success or raised by the dashboard, which is this machine algorithm on the data science dashboard that they created for us. And then we also do referrals. And that's kind of what our blueprint has been looking like for fall. And that's what we're going to be refining for the spring and beyond as well. The last slide here on the care team is about assessment. Obviously, we want to make sure that our efforts are worthwhile, and we're working closely once again with data science to make sure that the work that we do is paying dividends in being able to close that completion gap. We saw some promising results in the fall, and we're going to continue to refine it in the spring as we have a year under our belt pretty soon. But essentially, we're looking at how our students being retained from semester to semester. Did we make a difference? We saw positive results in the fall, right? We saw an increase with our care students compared to similar students who were not under our purview. We're also looking at the effectiveness of student follow through on raised flags and items in My Success. So are students engaging with us? Are they communicating with us? If one of our goals is to make sure students are not falling through the cracks, are we accomplishing that? And then we're also looking at qualitative data. My Success allows advisors, coordinators, anyone who's attached to those students to be able to write notes on that student. Recently, my father was in the hospital, and I was just amazed by the staff at the hospital who were able to tell me what was wrong with my dad, even though I never met that person, right? So I didn't have to repeat my story over and over again. And so a different nurse came in and I said, they gave something to my dad. I don't know what it was. She went to the computer, she looked it up. She was able to tell me that story. That's the same premise. We want to be able to make sure that our students, no matter where they are and who they go to, right, they don't have to retell their story, which sometimes can be painful, especially if something happened to their families or if something happened to them that's tragic or traumatic. We want to be able to say, hey, I know some stuff has happened. Let's see what we can help you with, without necessarily having that student reshare and share that story, which can be hurtful. And that's why we're looking at how well we're keeping notes on our students and how we're documenting their trajectory to our institution. The last little bit I'll talk about is Brilliant Scholars. This is kind of something that started a year ago in terms of the support that we've been investing into it, and we've been scaling it ever since. But our Brilliant Scholars program has been around for a few years now, maybe 5 or 6 years in its current version, but we've never been able to have the support that we have now to scale it up. Essentially, it's a targeted, once again, an individualized college retention program that's modeled after TRIO best practices. And as I mentioned earlier, TRIO is limited in terms of what they can do. So we work closely with them to learn from them and be able to replicate the same success with our students, but not have the same restrictions that our TRIO partners do in terms of who they can serve. For example, in the next slide, you'll see that we're serving populations that by the federal guidelines, they cannot serve. And those populations include first-gen students, undocumented students who are not eligible for financial aid because of their status, students who are transitioning out of foster care, which at this point is a very small amount of students in the program that are in that category, as well as non-traditional students. And really, we serve them to navigate SLCC. The requirements for Bruin Scholars include participating in a Summer Bridge Success Program. And so we have them start even before fall semester begins to get a boost on their English and their math, as well as a crash course on how to navigate SLCC. We also require them to take English and math. A lot of students leave math to the very end. I have student employees in my office who now need to take math, and they're about to graduate. And I was like, you should have done that your very first semester, you know? So we do the best to help them. But with this particular cohort, right, the requirement is you must do English and you must do math until you complete that sequence. They have to attend 2 campus events outside of the classroom, and we curate that list so that we hopefully drive engagement with resources. Again, that changed with the pandemic, but we're trying to do it online and figure out how we curate that online. They have to meet with their mentors, which include professional staff, but also peer mentors. And they have to participate in weekly student success, kind of a student success discussion group or circle. And some of those topics you'll see in the next slide. They include things like note taking, test prep, time management, how to study, and with COVID, we've been able to move those to some to like self-paced courses. Again, mini courses. We're trying to scale up what we're doing here to be able to create kind of that culture just for our Bruin Scholars, but also for students at large. And some of our faculty have been helping us with some of that content and thinking through it. And so in thinking about the success of this program, right? This is one, because it's been around for a couple of years, Data Science did a complete analysis on how, on the success and if this is making a difference for our students. And so on this next slide, you'll see some of those 2 graphs. They're hard to read, but I'll just kind of walk you through those. Essentially, the metrics of success that we've been measuring have been our students completing English 1010 in their first year, right? Our students completing math and their gateway math, which at this point has been math 1010, 1030, 1040, and ideally in their first year. And with both of those metrics, right? The yellow line on the left graphic is Bruin Scholars. You can see that there is some significance that our Bruin Scholars are meeting those 2 metrics. And that's important for us because we know that gateway English, gateway math, if students complete those, it's like this huge milestone in their completion of college. And so by having that as a requirement, by creating resources, connecting them to more individualized tutoring, we've been able to see the results that we've been wanting to see. The right is like the benefits of participating, right? And the likelihood of that not being by chance, of them passing English and passing math. And so then you can see that there is some statistical significance in them by participating in the program, being successful in those 2 metrics. And then where there's more certainty, in our last metric will be our graduation rates. So folks who are part of our Bruin Scholars tend to graduate at higher rates than similar students who are not part of that program. And that's more statistically likely. And again, there's fine print on all those. And this is a study that was published by Data Science, so that's accessible to folks if they want to read the entire report. But it's good to know that we're moving towards the right direction, right? And so our goal really is to continue to scale this up, to keep the quality as is, but do our best to continue with the success that we were seeing so far in the past couple of years.
Thanks for all that information, Richard. I'm going to hit on 2 things real quickly before turning over the time to Maria, because I think this is important to know, but the richness of the work that's being done really lands not only in Richard's team and Maria's team, but with so many things that are happening across the college. But it is important to know that we are about to hit a 25% of full-time enrollment of our Latinx students. The HSI designation is a federal term, Hispanic Serving Institution. Of course, we know that many of our students from this population may choose to identify as Hispanic or Latinx or Latino, Latina. There are many terms within this, but this is something that really will allow us to better serve our students. It'll be a beacon to this community that they are welcome here and that we care about them and that we're hoping to do our best by them. Part of this also means that there could be some financial incentives around like grants that could help us continue to serve the student population. But I think more important than maybe the fiscal aspects of it is I think it's really saying that we have a responsibility to better situate our institution to serve the students who are coming here. I think this impacts a lot of different things. And we are already doing so many wonderful things that are supporting these students, but we do have a lot of growth. And the team that you see listed here who's serving on this task force is not at all the people who are committed to this population of students. But it's the starting group that we hope continues to spread and help us grow these efforts. And these efforts really are around not only continuing to look at the data, measuring our successes, talking to students, but also in thinking about what does representation, empowerment, and liberation look like through this lens. One piece of representation that we talked about as a task force is if we are really trying to have parity of our population, the community, and our student population, we should also be charged with parity in terms of who's teaching them, who's supporting them in academic advising, who's supporting them in cabinet, right? Like all of us are called by them to represent who our students are coming in as. And right now, when I look around in meetings, you don't see 25% of our staff and faculty and administrators representing this community. And I don't mean to simplify it. It's not only representation, it's education and knowledge about a community as well. It is not solely tokenization, but we do know, of course, that we should continue to strive to see parity and see that at all levels, because it's going to impact decision making. It's going to impact the types of stories that are in the room. I also think as we talk about this, not only for our Latinx population, but for all of our students of color, or even all of our students from historically marginalized communities, because we know that goes beyond race, is to really also think having someone in a room, having someone on a committee, where is the power still represented? How many committees are you on that there might be one person of color there? And how comfortable do they feel to really say the truths that they think need to be said? Or if they do say those truths, how likely are we to hear them in a way that doesn't make them feel rushed through what they're saying, or doesn't make it seem like it's a side item versus something central to the conversation? A lot of times in talking with our peers of color at this institution, those are the barriers we have. It's not that we don't know what to do sometimes to serve our students better. I know we heard earlier that we're looking for innovative and new solutions. I would say that a lot of our staff are already saying this is the way to move forward, and it's really good ideas, but somehow the ideas also get marginalized, and by marginalizing those ideas and experiences and voices, we in turn marginalize our students. I don't mean to erase all the great work that we're doing, but I do think that's our next big step, is really thinking about how we're elevating voices who have been in these communities and who know these stories, who work with these students or have lived experiences. And that really also carries over as well as to the ANAPZ task force. This stands for Asian American and the Native American Pacific Islander. It's a little confusing. I was confused at first because we don't necessarily mean Native American Indigenous students. We really mean Asian American students, and then students who are native to the Pacific Islands somewhere in their heritage. For this, there's a lower threshold to have a 10% amount of students from these two identity groups. But then there's also the threshold of having at least 50% of all degree-seeking students really being eligible for federal assistance. And so these are two things where we're working towards, not just thinking about, okay, we've reached saturation of a certain population, but what are we doing overall to show that we are supporting students and helping them be successful here? And of course, one of those measures is in how are we reducing barriers to financial support. We know there's lots of other barriers that we need to work on reducing in order to do this. But it is important, I think it's important to acknowledge that even the federal government says, hey, if you're not doing well by your students with financial aid and scholarships, then why would we continue to invest in you? And that's something that everyone can help us with, is helping our students recognize the opportunities that might be available for them there. I also, before I turn it over to Maria to tell us more about ODMA, I also think it's really important to acknowledge that even though we don't have task forces for all of our students of color and their unique identities, all of them are really important. And this amount of intention, this amount of community and discussion, this amount of research and ideation on how we move forward is really, really important. And so I would say that I would imagine our next step would be thinking about how do we create task forces that aren't just about getting federal grants, but are about how we can move the needle forward for the unique identities that we know are facing enormous hardship, even outside of our campus, but certainly also at times within.
Awesome. Thank you, Kat. I'm going to jump into talking a little bit about the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, or as we lovingly call it, ODMA. I know some folks are a little bit more familiar than about what ODMA is and kind of the services we offer. So I'll give a quick overview. But before I jump into that, I think it was really important to kind of show our data. And this is a little bit older. This is from 1819 from our data portal, which shows the numbers of students of color and white students on our campus. I think a lot of us and have heard multiple times that we are the most ethnically diverse institution in the USHE system, which is absolutely true. Definitely something to be celebrated. With that, we also want to point out, as you can see the chart on the right, we still remain a predominantly white campus. We are still very much, we know that institutions of higher education were never created for students of color. Right. And I don't just mean in critical mass, both in students and also in faculty and staff, but in a lot of ways, our policies and practices and procedures are still very much the way they were when institutions of higher ed were created. But again, we're not created for students of color and or queer students. So I like to point that out. While it is definitely something to be celebrated, we still have lots of work to do. We know that we've been talking about our completion gap, and that's exactly why the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs exists, to close that achievement gap. So our office really is meant to create a welcoming and inclusive environment on our campus. I've had the privilege of working at 3 USHE institutions, at the University of Utah, at Southern Utah University, and now the best institution, SLCC. But in each of those, I've worked in the equity and diversity offices in each of those campuses. And a lot of times I've gotten a lot of questions about why these types of offices exist, right? A lot of the pushback is y'all are self-segregating, right? Students of color are self-segregating. You all are choosing to kind of segregate yourselves. And I like to challenge that narrative and say it's more about self-preservation versus self-segregation, right? Self-preservation at the very minimum in biology and science is to keep yourself alive, right? And that sounds really dramatic, but our students really are keeping themselves alive. They come to ODMA, they connect with our office because that's what they need, right? Even though we are the most diverse institution in USHE. Sorry, looking at the chat. A lot of our students of color sometimes are the only students of color in their classroom. They are the only one there, right? So a couple of things that we do in ODMA, we have multicultural success coordinators who are advocating for our students. We are fortunate that we do have a coordinator for each one of our underrepresented groups that supports our students in a culturally competent way. We're not academic advisors. We're not the end all be all that we only work with students of color, right? We're supplemental. We're here to advocate for students. We're here to see them for who they are and for their identities. We also have the GSSRC, the Gender and Sexuality Student Resource Center, that works with our LGBTQ students and women students. Peter and his team do amazing work with our students. And both of those spaces are kind of the safe space where students can come to be one of the few places on campus where they are the majority and where they can kind of let their guard down and relax. We are also very intentional about celebrating identities through programming. February is Black History Month as an example, and we are putting out a poster here soon that kind of will describe what we're doing to celebrate our identities. That's really an intentional effort so students see themselves represented, so they feel like they belong here. We see you, we value you, right? We're celebrating you and your full self. We do have a couple of mentorship programs, and I know, I think it was Chris who was asking on the chat. We have 3 mentorship programs that I want to give a quick shout out to. Somos Más is one of our mentorship programs for Latinx students that Cindy Estevez, our Latinx coordinator, has launched in the last couple of years. Obviously, like everything else, it's been a little bit challenging with COVID, but given that is our largest underrepresented group, we do additional support for our Latinx population, and Cindy has done an amazing job with that program. We also have Brother to Brother, which is a mentorship program for men of color. And this is something that our former Chief Diversity Officer, Dr. Land, and who's the current Dean in the Humanities Department, brought to SLCC. It's a national program. And as we know, men of color are not entering college or graduating college at the same rates as women of color. Definitely a gap there. So thankful for Brother to Brother and for AC Cox, who is helping us run that program. He's faculty in the marketing department. We also have a TALS program, which Richard briefly mentioned, but this is for students who have aged out of the foster care system. They get a scholarship through the Olene Walker Foundation at the state, and it's just an additional support system to make sure these students are retaining and graduating. I mention these because there are lots of opportunities to mentor students. So if folks are interested in being a part of this program, please reach out to me and we're happy to connect you. Next slide, Kat. So I love this picture. This is the essence of ODMA. We work hard and we play hard and we have a good time. But what we recognize is a lot of students don't know who we are. And a lot of faculty don't know who we are. So what we were able to implement this last semester this last year as a part of Strategy 10, we were able to work with Kate in admissions and use our CRM system. So all students of color are receiving a welcome email right when they get their admissions letter. And it's a welcome email that just says, hey, I'm your multicultural success coordinator. I'm here to support you in whatever you might need. We've seen a huge jump in students who have been connecting with our coordinators and connecting with our office because of these emails. So while it seems like a kind of an insignificant piece, it's one more email students are getting because it's directly to them, because it's from a person and not an office, right? Students are really connecting with us and connecting with our office. So that's been a huge positive factor that we have been able to do. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Kat. We've also been able to launch a peer mentor program this last semester, which has been fabulous. We were able to hire 13 students who also share identities of the students that we're working with. We've been able to divide them up between the GSSRC and the Dream Center, which is working with our undocumented students. And we're really intentional with our outreach, right? It's not it is a part of, hey, I'm here to support you, but it's also very timely communication. We have a communications calendar where we reach out at specific times throughout the semester when we know students are needing support, right? So as an example, like third week of classes is really when kind of that students are like, oh man, things are getting really hard. I need some support right now. I don't know if I can do this, right? So what kind of resources are we reaching out to students on that third week saying, hey, we have a counseling center, and hey, guess what? Counseling services are free right now, right? So we're very intentional during midterms, making sure that we're talking about some of the resources like the tutoring center or the writing center. We're also being really intentional with the data we use. And so we are able to pull some data on FAFSA completion and reach out to those students who haven't filled out a FAFSA. And it says, hey, we noticed you haven't filled out a FAFSA. Is there any support we can provide you? Can we connect you to the financial aid office? Because we know if students fill out a FAFSA, they're more likely to retain and graduate. So we're both doing intentional outreach and timely communication to make sure we're meeting our students at the time where we think that they need the most support. Our peer mentors are awesome. We're lucky to have them. And they're also students. And so they're also able to give us very valuable feedback on what they would need or what they're looking for to help them kind of retain and graduate. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Kat. Inclusive symbols. This was also a part of Strategy 10. We want to be, again, as I mentioned, we continue to be a predominantly white campus. And so what are some of the things that we can do so that our students feel like they belong and feel like they are seen, right? And that we value their identities. One of the things that we were able to do this last semester is a land acknowledgement. So that picture right there is of Joey Duchesne Nabinick. He is one of our student leaders and actually our peer mentor leader currently in our office. He was also leadership for ASIL, which is the American Indian Student Leadership Club, which was very instrumental in drafting the land acknowledgement and getting these plaques placed on all of our campuses. So all of our major campuses do have this plaque. This is a picture of the one that's right outside the Student Center. And it's really just recognizing the original folks that were a part of this land and recognizing that just recognizing the original ancestors of this land. But I guess, and this was a first step, and I'm thankful that we did this, but I also encourage us to think a little bit more broadly about how we're supporting students, right? This is important, and I'm glad we did it. It can also be seen as very performative, right? What else are we doing to support our Native American students? One thing I will say, this last year, we were able to receive funding to hire a part-time Native American coordinator in our office to work specifically with that population. That's the first time our office has had that position, so we're incredibly excited that Orville Calladito joined our team. And we're hoping to receive additional funding to be able to keep that position and to make it full-time. So another example is the welcome pole banners. This is not a picture of our campus or our pole banners, but I realized that I forgot to grab a picture. Hopefully the marketing team has it, but this semester we were able to, at the beginning of the semester, put up welcome pole banners in different languages. We chose about the top 15 languages that are in our area, just so, again, imagine if you speak another language and you're walking on campus for the first time and you see welcome in your language, right? Sometimes it seems very insignificant, but I think for folks who speak another language, it's like, I feel seen, right? You see me, you acknowledge me, you value me. So we will continue to do that. We'll continue to put up those welcome posters at the beginning of each semester. A couple of other different ways that we are incorporating inclusive symbols are in non-traditional ways. So earlier in the chat, I know Daniel was asking about LGBTQ identities. This is one of the identities right now that we don't currently track. This is, in essence, an invisible population. We don't know who our LGBTQ students are unless they self-identify and come to the GSSRC. We don't know who this population is. And if we don't know who this population is, we don't know if we are serving them in the right way. So we are actually working, currently in the process of hopefully adding this question to the admissions application. And in this way, in the same way we track race and ethnicity, we'll be able to track LGBTQ status, both to connect students to the GSSRC and some of the resources that are offered there, but also to be able to track similarly the retention and graduation rates. Again, right now with no data, we have no way of knowing if we're supporting our students in the correct way. A couple other things that we have discussed is being able to track languages spoken. And this came up when we were incorporating the pole banners because we don't know what languages our students speak. We were able to partner with the Granite School District, which is where a huge majority of our students come from, to see what their top 10 or 15 languages were. And we worked with our team to kind of see if we thought these were the top languages that we wanted to post. But if that is the question, whether it be through the admissions application or whether it be through My Success or some way where we can track languages spoken, language is such a huge part of our students' identities. And the fact that we're not tracking it, sometimes it's just showing that we don't value that, right? Even though the students value that. One of the other items that we don't track is tribal affiliation, right? And again, these are examples of a very white perspective, right? We don't think through these nuances if we don't have these identities. So tribal affiliation for our Native American students is huge, right? We meaning like the non-Native folks tend to lump our Native American students all in one category. They're Native American, they're Indigenous. They don't do that. They very much identify with their tribal affiliation and their clans, right? And we are not tracking that either. So these are kind of some of the other ways that we are trying to be intentional and inclusive in how we're seeing and supporting our students. If folks have other ideas for inclusive symbols on campus, we are open to this and we would love to hear from you. So please connect with any of us on this with Kat or Richard or myself. And we're happy to kind of talk through some of those. I believe that's my last slide and we are almost out of time. So yep, perfect timing. Kat, you are muted.
I am the worst at technology. I apologize. I was just saying I turned off the slideshow so that if you'll have comments or questions or things you want to share, ideas, we would love to hear from all of you. And I'll be over here taking notes.
There's a question in the chat, particularly about the symbols, Maria. So, you know, there's symbols that are kind of easy wins, like the crosswalk, the line acknowledgement, and there's symbols that are much harder to pull, like a full-time coordinator, you know, for Native American students that has benefits. Can you address kind of the tension between, you know, the more flashy symbols versus the ones that are more deep lasting and in my opinion, you know, life-changing?
Sure. And I don't know that I have the answer to that aside from saying that we acknowledge and recognize that, right? And like I had mentioned with the land acknowledgements, it's a great first step, but it can also be seen as very performative. Like, and I was trying to follow the chat, and it's right? We're saying, hey, we're on your land and we're acknowledging it, but we're only going to give you a part-time coordinator. Absolutely, 100%, I agree with that. And that's what I'm really trying to do, is advocate to be able to have that full-time position, to be able to advocate whether it's positions or whether it's additional funding to have some of these programs. It's tough, right? We have some of that low hanging fruit that it's like, let's go ahead and do that because this might be a quick, easy win. But you're right, we do need to be more intentional about policies and procedures that are truly affecting our students. And like everything in higher ed and policy, things move slow. I don't mean to make excuses, but that's a reality. But I think that's why it's super important for our office to exist. And sure, I'm biased, but I'll give a shout out. Like, ODMA has to exist. Our Chief Diversity Officer has to exist. And we have to make sure that we're being really intentional about some of those long lasting actual changes, but it is a challenge. And I think that's why we're having this conversation, but I do acknowledge that.
Other questions or thoughts? I'm going through the chat right now. I couldn't see it earlier when I had the slides up, but man, y'all have some really great questions.
This is Shireen. I have a question. Can you hear me? Oh, good. So one of the things that I struggle with is I have several Pacific Islander students that identify that way. And culturally, I understand that family is so important. So if they get a call from a family member that they need help, and this doesn't have to be an immediate family member like a father or a sibling, but this could be an uncle or an aunt from extended family, that they feel obligated to go and take care of them or help them or assist them, which means they end up dropping out of the class. And I understand this strong pull to take care of this cultural tradition, and yet it conflicts with their desire to finish college, and they feel so bad. They really want to finish the class, but it's a stronger need to go with this cultural tradition. How do we help these students?
Oh, I love that you brought that up. You know, one of the things that's so interesting to me, but it's both a source of pride and a source of confusion, is we often attribute communities of color as caring so much for their family that it somehow supersedes all else. But I would say white people care about their families too, right? Like, it's one of those things where I think there's a social issue that we have to kind of refocus on ourselves and our institution, and what is it that we're doing that somehow makes it seem exclusionary for certain populations, that they can't do both, and they can't somehow care for their families and be able to continue to be a successful student. And so I would maybe reframe that as not that it's a cultural piece that says family is more important than school, because I would say everyone across race and ethnicity probably believes family is more important than school. But what is it institutionally, not just unique maybe to SLCC, but perhaps all of higher education, that says, if you have a family emergency, we don't provide the same flexibility for you to take care of them in a culturally authentic way and allow you to be able to be successful as a student. My personal feelings, and then I'll turn it over to Maria and Richard if they have other things, or to anyone here that might have feelings about this, is that we have so many additional barriers for our students of color internally, that it's not that they couldn't have balanced school and family, it's that they can't balance school plus the racial barriers that are just essentially a part of school plus family. That would be my initial reaction, but I'll turn it over to people who probably know better than me.
No, I think I agree with everything Kat said. And one additional thing I'll answer is, or one additional thing I'll add, is how some of our policies and procedures are preventing students from being able to take care of their families, right? And again, I'll use the example of some of our Native communities that have some ceremonies that come up in untimely ways in terms of like the academic calendar, right? And again, a student saying, you know what, I have to go home to this ceremony. And what policies or do we have or don't we have that are not allowing our students to be able to head back home to be able to be a part of those ceremonies, right? That is a huge part of students' identities, and the fact that we're saying you either have to choose to head back home to be a part of the ceremony or your class, right? We are not doing students a benefit by not having those sorts of policies that allow students to be able to take some time off to attend that ceremony and then come back and be able to catch up. I'm sure faculty members on this call aren't going to love to hear that, but these are the ways that we're thinking through the policies that are creating additional barriers for our students in their identities, I think is important to point out.
Kat, we're getting some more questions on the chat. One easy one is some folks couldn't see the slides. Will those be available somehow after the presentation?
You know, as presenters, we haven't gotten that information, but what I'll be sure to do is I'll put these slides on the Strategy 10 website, and then I would hope that there's probably going to be some stuff on the SLCC 360 website, or else linking back to the strategy. So we post a lot of things, including the minutes from our task force meeting on that strategy SharePoint.
And we may just have time for one more question. Is there a way for us to respond to the other questions later that are on the chat? I assume we'll figure our way out.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how I can download them so that I can make sure that I have it all and that we're responding to it. And we'll figure out a way probably through that SharePoint, just because it's open access to everyone. But also, since names are associated with what you put in the chat, there might be some individual follow-up because y'all raised some really great things.
So the last question, I guess, which is the first one that was posted, is from Cindy's. When it comes to Salt Lake Community College becoming an HSI, what are some of the main differences we'll be able to see / experience once the school accomplishes that status?
I'm happy to take that, and then Kat can jump in afterwards. I think the biggest thing is we'll have access to federal grants and that we can apply to. That obviously with more money, we'll have more resources either to hire more staff or to do more intentional programming, whether that be mentorship programs. But I also a very intentional in knowing that we would be an HSI. I think the rest of the institution would be very intentional in recognizing that we also need more faculty and staff. More faculty and staff that have that identity. And so my hope is that we see it both in an increase in faculty and staff that have Latinx identities, but also with increased funding. I do think we'll have a capacity to do, to provide more support for Latinx students.
I also think it would help. So many of us already know, right, that we've been tracking these trends and know that our Latinx population is growing, and we already see movement like for that population. For example, admissions is about to roll out in the next 3 months a Spanish language application. And so we're already responding to the needs because we've seen the population grow. I do think that when you have that designation, it will cement that everyone should know at that point, right? Like that this is an important and large population that we are serving. And so hopefully that will then create more change, things that maybe even Richard, Maria, and I can't even imagine right now because we're not invested in those areas. But it will, I think, kind of be like a beacon to others, potentially to be more thoughtful about what we need to do to be more inclusive. I think that, and I apologize, I think the schedule for today has changed. The website says something different than it did a couple of days ago. And so I think that we're probably supposed to wrap up right now. And so I, again, will try and figure out how to get all this downloaded before heading into my next session. But I really appreciate you being here. I'm so glad we're recording this so that if you aren't here right now, maybe you're revisiting this later. And I look forward to being able to talk more about this in a space that isn't primarily just presentation. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you in later sessions.